She froze as the man's finger jabbed the back of her seat. Around her, first-class passengers stiffened, their conversations dying in mid-sentence. The cabin lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. Outside, the engines hummed at cruising altitude, but inside, the air felt electric. "Get out of my seat," the stranger hissed, his voice low but fierce. "I paid for this spot. You don't belong here." Maya Dalton's heart pounded. She sat tall, chestnut curls brushing her shoulders, her designer laptop bag tightly clutched in her lap. She had boarded at the first-class door, shown her ticket, and quietly settled into seat 2A. Now this man, a tall white stranger in a rumpled suit, glared at her, as though she had stolen something priceless. Her fingers tingled. She drew in a breath. "Sir," she said in a calm, measured tone, "I have every right to be here. My ticket is—" Before she could finish, the cabin door hissed open. A tall figure in captain's uniform strode in, dark gold braid on his sleeves, crisp white shirt beneath. Maya felt a spark of relief. Authority had arrived on her side. But the instant he reached the first rows, his face changed. He paused, eyes widening as he saw Maya. His jaw slackened. For a heartbeat, the captain's professional mask fell away. Maya watched in stunned silence as he leaned forward and cleared his throat. "Mum," he said, voice hushed but resolute. "Could you hand me that clipboard?" Gasps rippled through the cabin. The passenger at Maya's side staggered back in his seat. Nearby, a flight attendant pressed a hand to her mouth, eyes darting between Maya and the captain. Maya's pulse raced. Her breath caught. Was it possible? She stared at the captain, her son standing in full uniform before her in this first-class cabin. Jacob, the boy she had raised since he was 4, the one she hadn't seen in 5 years, who had refused every call, every letter after she'd been forced to send him away. Shock pulsed through her veins. She leaned forward, hand trembling, and picked up the leather-bound clipboard from the armrest. "Here," she whispered. Jacob's eyes glistened. He held out his hand, an instinctive reflex of pride and protectiveness. Then, just as quickly, he cleared his throat, straightened his shoulders, and accepted the clipboard as if nothing unusual had happened. "Thank you, ma'am," he said to Maya, voice professional once more. He gave the angry passenger a hard look. "Sir, is there a problem here?" The man swallowed hard. He glanced at the uniform, then at Maya, then back at the uniform again. His knuckles whitened on the armrest. "No problem," he stammered, "just enforcing the rules." Jacob's eyes never left the man's face. "The rules are clear, sir. All passengers must be treated with respect." The man's anger flickered, replaced by confusion and guilt. He muttered something beneath his breath. Maya sank back into her seat, hands still clutching the clipboard. Tears pricked her eyes, not from sorrow, but from relief and disbelief. A flight attendant rushed over, voice soft. "Is everything okay, Captain?" Jacob nodded, then paused, glancing at Maya again. The attendant hesitated, sensing the storm between mother and son, then backed away discreetly. Silence settled. The engines thrummed. Maya felt the world tilt beneath her. Memories flooded back. Jacob's scraped knees, bedtime stories, laughter echoing down narrow hallways of their old apartment. Then the eviction notice, the legal battles, the foster homes, and finally, the final goodbye when social services took him away. She'd spent every day since fighting to see him again. Today, she'd flown halfway across the world for an important business meeting, and somehow, fate had put her in the same sky as her own son. Maya's fingers shook. She tapped the clipboard's edge. Her throat tightened. Jacob glanced around, clearing his professional demeanor. He raised a hand in a gentle stop sign to the other passenger, then turned to Maya. "Mom, would you like something to drink? Coffee, tea?" Her voice caught. She managed a small nod. "Tea, please." He offered the clipboard to a flight attendant, then took her hand, guiding it to a fresh seatbelt strap. "Stay seated, please. I'll be right back." As he strode down the aisle, Maya pressed a hand to her heart, breath coming in ragged gasps. Around her, first-class guests exchanged whispering glances. Who was this woman, and how did she know the captain personally? Maya closed her eyes for a moment, steadying herself. She had one chance now, one chance to speak to Jacob, to explain, to reconnect after years of silence. She had to be strong. Jacob returned with a tray. To steaming cliffs, he placed one in front of her with a tenderness she hadn't felt in years. Her hands shook as she wrapped them around the warm cup. Thank you, she whispered. Jacob offered a small, tentative smile. You're welcome. Maya took a sip. The hot liquid burned pleasantly in her chest, but nothing compared to the fire in her emotions. Confusion, joy, guilt, fear, they all danced together in a whirlpool of feeling. Why didn't you ever answer my calls? She blurted, voice barely above a whisper. She caught herself and swallowed. I mean, why didn't you ever ask who called? Why did you let me go? Jacob's lips pressed together. He set his own cup down, gaze fixed on the seat back in front of him. After a long pause, he looked up, eyes steady. I was told you were dangerous. That you, Maya's breath caught. Dangerous. Her mind reeled. Told by who? He shook his head. It doesn't matter. Tension crackled through her. It does matter to me. A sudden jolt shook the plainer minor turbulence that rattled cups and silverware. Maya gripped her armrests. Around them, passengers murmured. Jacob's knuckles whitened on the tray table. When the turbulence passed, Jacob glanced toward the cockpit door, a subtle sign of concern for his crew. He returned his gaze to Maya. I'm sorry you had to guess why. I believed them. Betrayal lanced through her. You believed lies instead of your own mother. He flinched. I was scared. His voice cracked. I thought you left me on purpose. Her throat constricted. I would never leave. You, Jacob. He looked down, eyes distant. I didn't know that at the time. Maya's chest tightened. Fear and hope warred inside her. She leaned closer, voice firm. Then let's talk now, please. He nodded, uncertain. A flight attendant appeared. Her presence a polite reminder. Service continued around them. But Maya and Jacob were paused in their own private world. The attendant quietly cleared 2 glasses and offered a snack tray. Jacob thanked her, then settled back. Maya took another sip of tea, letting the warmth steady her. I need to tell you everything, she said. But first, can you promise me one thing? He met her eyes. Anything. Don't send me away again. His face crumbled, tears brimming. I promise. They sat in silence, the low hum of the jet filling the space between them. Ahead lay 5 more hours of flight time, and with it, an uncertain journey of words, of truths finally spoken. Around them, first-class life continued. Champagne glasses clinked, hushed laughter rose and fell. But for Maya and Jacob, the world had shrunk to this small cabin row, where mother and son sat reunited on invisible threads of hope and regret. As the plane leveled out on smooth air, Maya pressed her palm over her son's hand. For the first time in years, she felt the possibility of healing. Yet beyond the cabin walls lay danger she could not yet name, secrets that had built walls between them, and truths powerful enough to threaten their fragile reunion. The seatbelt sign dinged off. The passenger who had demanded Maya's seat shifted uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze. Maya closed her eyes, steeling herself for what must come next. She had won this battle, at least for now, but the real war, the one against the lies and shadows of the past, had only just begun. What now? Maya felt the tremor of her son's promise settle in her chest, as Jacob stood rigid in his uniform, offering that steady gaze, and she wondered how they would bridge the chasm of years without trust slipping through their fingers. Like them, the cabin hummed with whispers and glares, as the man who had demanded her seat sank back into his own seat, his face pale and undecided, but Jacob kept his posture firm, as though daring anyone to disturb the fragile peace between them. Maya lifted her hand from the armrest and brushed a stray curl from her forehead. She searched Jacob's eyes for any sign of doubt, but found only a fierce resolve that warmed her heart with a hope she had long thought vanished. Jacob cleared his throat and offered Maya a small smile that betrayed the years of hurt he had hidden behind professional courtesy, and she matched his smile, though her heart ached for the son she had lost and for the woman he had become. The flight attendant hovered nearby, waiting for instructions, and Jacob motioned her gently away while he turned his full attention back to the tense passenger, who still glared as though he could punish Maya with his stare. Sir, he said in a calm, commanding tone, the rules apply to every passenger without exception. The man swallowed and tapped his fingers on the armrest, but he said nothing, allowing Jacob to reclaim order with the quiet authority of a captain who would not back down. Maya clenched her hands in her lap, her heart pounding with gratitude and fear, as she realized that every passenger in first class now watched their private reunion with rapt attentions. She took a deep breath and spoke softly. Jacob, there is something I need to tell you about why I left, and why I could not come back when I was forced to choose between protecting you and fighting in a court. I had no choice. Jacob's brow furrowed, and his eyes darkened with questions, but before he could speak, another tremor shook the plane stronger than before, and the overhead bins rattled violently. Passengers gasped and clutched their armrests as the seatbelt sign flickered on once again, and the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "This is your captain speaking. We are experiencing unexpected turbulence. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." Maya felt a cold dread ripple through her as she glanced at Jacob, whose hand gripped the tray table, his knuckles white with tension. He leaned close, his voice a whisper only she could hear. "Hold on to me." Her heart leaped at his words, and she reached for his hand, weaving her fingers with his, despite the jolt that rattled the cabin. Yet the tension between them eased in that moment of connection. The turbulence subsided almost as suddenly as it began, but a sense of foreboding lingered in the air, as though the plane carried more than just passengers. Between distant cities, Maya's mind raced with questions she had to answer, and secrets she had to confess, yet she feared that one wrong word could shatter the fragile trust she saw flickering in Jacob's eyes. He released her hand and straightened his shoulders, calling for the flight attendant once more to secure the cabin for continued flight, but Maya noticed the tight line of his jaw, the way his gaze flicked to every passenger, as though he suspected someone posing a threat. Jacob spoke low but firm. "Maya, I will protect you, but you must trust me completely." She nodded her head, not trusting her voice, and the flight attendant returned with hot towels and bottled water, moving quietly around them, as if aware that this was no ordinary flight. Maya accepted the towel and placed it on her lap, her senses heightened as she realized that every steward and passenger now seemed to watch her with curiosity and suspicion. Jacob stood at the aisle watching Maya with a protective vigilance she had never known before, and in that moment she felt both vulnerable and fiercely alive. She swallowed hard, knowing that the truth she would speak after landing could either heal the wounds of betrayal or destroy what little bond remained between them. Ahead lay hours of flight time and a descent that would bring confrontation with more than just memories and regrets, but with the shadows of a past that still hunted them both. As the plane leveled out and the engines returned to a steady hum, Maya closed her eyes and prepared to face the man who had demanded her seat, knowing that the real storm was only just beginning. The cabin lights dimmed, and the hum of the engines felt heavier as Maya pressed her hand to her chest and stared at Jacob across the narrow aisle, where his uniform glinted under the soft overhead glow, and she wondered how much he truly knew about the danger that stalked her every step across continents. And years of silence melted away in the tension between them as Jacob leaned in and murmured that the storm wasn't only outside but hidden in the lies that separated them, and Maya swallowed hard, betraying a trembling in her voice as she began to recount the night. She'd been forced to choose between a court fight for custody and a witness in hiding, and she described the black sedan that had followed her from the courthouse and the message scrawled on her voicemail, threatening retaliation if she spoke another word, while Jacob's eyes darkened with fury and betrayal, and he clenched his jaw so tightly Maya felt the tremor of his pain as though it were her own. Yet she pushed on, telling him how she'd fled with nothing but his old teddy bear and a promise to find him again, only to be blocked at every turn by unseen forces that branded her a criminal when all she'd done was protect her son. And Jacob's hand flew to his badge as though he wanted to demand answers from the world itself, but Maya shook her head, pleading for him to listen, because the real enemy was still out there watching their every move. And the man from first class now sat rigidly in his seat, glaring at them, as if he recognized the danger too, but dared not speak for fear of drawing the storm down upon them both. And Jacob stood up, smoothing his uniform with a hard edge in his voice as he declared that he would uncover the truth, no matter who stood in his way. And Maya watched his profile carved with determination and love, and the device in his pocket buzzed sharply, reminding him of duty, yet also offering a lifeline to her heart. And she felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest, despite the shadows closing in. And Jacob reached across the aisle and took her hand, his grip firm and protective, and Maya squeezed back, knowing that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, with secrets laid bare and vengeance looming. And as the first-class cabin settled into uneasy silence, Maya closed her eyes and drew in a steadying breath, ready to unmask the truth that would either save them both or tear them apart forever. Maya felt a cold shadow slip across her heart as the man from first class rose from his seat and stepped toward them in slow measured strides, his eyes locked on Jacob's uniform and then flicked to Maya's trembling hands. The entire cabin seemed to hold its breath as the stranger's voice cut through the hush, telling the captain that he had information that could put them both in danger. Jacob's jaw tightened and Maya's pulse thundered in her ears as the man revealed a folded photograph and an old crumpled badge that matched Jacob's own. He held them out in a trembling hand and whispered that he had served under the same division as Jacob years ago, before a mission went wrong, and Maya felt the ground tilt beneath her as she realized this was no random passenger but a link to the dark past she had tried to escape. Jacob took a step forward, his voice steady, despite the quake in his heart, asking the man what he wanted, and the stranger's gaze flickered with pain and guilt as he confessed that he had been ordered to follow Maya and silence her after she testified against a powerful figure. Maya's throat tightened as memories of threats and near misses flooded back, and she reached for Jacob's hand, their fingers entwining in a silent vow to face whatever lay ahead. The man's shoulders sagged, and he bowed his head, asking for forgiveness and protection from the shadows that still hunted them. Both tension roared through the cabin as Maya and Jacob exchanged a fierce look, and each passenger felt the weight of the secret laid bare. As the stranger sank back into his seat, Jacob leaned close to Maya and whispered that they needed to land fast and find the truth before the hunters closed in. Maya swallowed the fear surging in her chest and nodded, knowing that the real flight was only just beginning. What no? Jacob guided Maya down the aisle toward the rear exit, their breaths ragged with urgency, and their uniforms and handbags brushed past frightened passengers who watched the unfolding drama unfold around them with wide eyes and hushed whispers. Flight attendant intercepted them with a worried glance, asking if they were all right, and Jacob nodded stiffly, whispering that they needed to disembark immediately and speak to ground control about a potential security breach. Maya's heart thundered as she recalled the stranger's confession about shadows still hunting them, and she gripped Jacob's arm, determined to shield him from the pain and anger that burned in her chest. They reached the door, and Jacob pressed his badge to the lock, releasing the latch with a soft click that sounded like a promise of safety. Maya exhaled, shaky, and followed him onto the jet bridge, where the stale air of the cabin gave way to the cold rush of night air, tinged with the smell of jet fuel outside. The metal walkway lights flickered, and ground crew hurried past as if sensing that every second counted. Maya looked up at the dark sky and felt the weight of the mission that lay ahead, and Jacob pulled her close, guiding her toward the terminal sliding doors inside. The terminal bright lights and crowded corridors greeted them, and Maya winced at the noise and glare, but she steeled herself, reminding her mind that every detail could be a clue to unraveling the conspiracy that had torn their lives apart. They approached the information desk, and Jacob requested an urgent escort to the private security office, his voice firm despite the tremor she heard beneath it, and Maya watched his profile etched with determination and protectiveness, a shield she could lean on in the coming storm. An airport security officer approached, nodding to Jacob's ID, and Maya felt a flicker of relief as they were ushered down a service corridor, away from prying eyes and cameras, and into a small, dimly lit office, where monitors glowed with live airport feeds. Jacob crossed the room and tapped on a keyboard, bringing up the flight manifest and security logs. Maya peered over his shoulder, recognizing names she had once trusted, and then watched her pulse leap as one file flickered on the screen, a red alert next to the name of the man from first class. Before she could speak, the door slid open, and a stern woman in a sharp suit entered, her eyes cold yet curious, and she asked Captain Dalton what had prompted his emergency request, and Jacob squared his shoulders and introduced Maya as a key witness under threat, and the woman's gaze flickered between them with skepticism and intrigue. Swallowed and met the woman's eyes, her voice steady as she recounted the threats and the conspiracy, and she watched the woman's expression shift as proof of a shadow network emerged on the screen, and Jacob placed a hand on Maya's back, offering silent support. The woman nodded and reached for the phone, dialing a number Maya recognized as the private investigator she had once hired, and Jacob's eyes widened with recognition as the investigator's voice crackled through the speaker and confirmed that an unmarked black sedan had been traced to a high-ranking official. Gasp escaped Maya's lips as the pieces clicked into place: the betrayal, the lies, the powerful figure who had orchestrated her exile, and Jacob's grip on her hand tightened as he realized the enemy was closer than they had feared, the woman turned off the monitor and faced them, her voice low yet resolute. "We have to move now. The suspect is boarding a connecting flight, and the only way to stop him is to intercept him before takeoff." Maya's heart hammered with dread and determination as she looked at Jacob and whispered that they must end this chain of lies tonight, and Jacob nodded, his eyes burning with fierce promise. They stepped back into the corridor, ready to chase justice through the shadows of the airport halls as the threat loomed like a storm on the horizon, and every second ticked toward a confrontation that would decide their fate, and the fate of the secrets that had nearly destroyed them. Maya and Jacob burst into the boarding lounge, their footsteps echoing on the polished floor as the final boarding call rang through the speakers, and Maya's heart thundered with the knowledge that the man who had haunted her past stood just beyond the gate, surrounded by oblivious passengers. Jacob pressed his badge against the glass door and it swung open without a sound, and they slid inside, moving quickly past surprised travelers until they spotted the conspirator pacing near the jet bridge, his gaze darting nervously as though he sensed doom approaching. Maya stepped forward, her voice strong and unwavering. "You are under arrest for witness intimidation and conspiracy to commit harm against my family." And the man's face drained of color as Jacob cuffed him with practiced ease, and the two of them guided him away, past stunned onlookers whose eyes widened at the sight of a uniformed captain escorting a trembling official outside the terminal. A security team arrived swiftly, securing the suspect, and Jacob turned to Maya, his uniform rumpled and his eyes bright with relief and pride. They walked together onto the tarmac where the cold night air wrapped around them, and Jacob slipped an arm around Maya's shoulders, drawing her close, and she rested her head against him, savoring the warmth of safety and forgiveness. Maya raised her face to the stars above, whispering to Jacob that she had always fought for him, even when she had no strength left, and Jacob pressed his cheek to hers, promising he would never let her go again. In the weeks that followed, the truth came to light, and the powerful official was exposed and removed from office, and Maya's name was cleared, and Jacob stood by her side as the world celebrated their courage and perseverance. At last, mother and son reclaimed their lives and rebuilt their bond on truth and love, and Maya learned that sometimes losing everything becomes the path to finding the strength within, and Jacob discovered that forgiveness can heal the deepest wounds, and together they embraced a new beginning filled with hope and purpose. The end.